Heya. So it's been a couple of days since I started the warping process. Things have happened. We live in a changing world right now. But I am back to get some more of this done. I'll tell you what happened. That night when I was warping the loom and starting to tie things off, I use a phone to record everything, and the battery died. So, to continue, I just stopped everything, didn't touch the loom, and sort of put everything on hold for it's been about a week, and so that I could continue with my promise of showing all of the whole process. And so here we are. We're back. So where we left off, I had started to tie off the warp. So the warp had come through the heddle, and I had big knots in it. So now it's the time to straighten it out and tie it off, get it attached to the front apron, and finish the warping process. So today we're going to do that. We're actually going to get this rolling. So we're actually going to start weaving today. So let's get this finished. I'm going to change my angle so that you can see what I'm doing with my hands, and let's get at it. All right, so now you are aimed at the loom, as you can see. And what we have is, for each set of the black and the gray, I have tied it off with a smaller knot, and it's difficult to see, but the goal is to tie them all off at about the same length. So here's what I do, and I'm hoping you can see this. I'm going to try and track it. Let me pull you back just a little bit so you can see what I'm up to. There we go. Sorry about the camera work. Just this is my phone. So, all right. So I want to get an eyeball as to where this knot is, so that when I finish this knot, it's going to be approximately there. It just needs to be a basic knot. No big deal. This is not supposed to be a stressful process, by the way. There's quite a few steps involved, but this should be a very peaceful, calm, we're going to do some repetitive work and just pace through it. So we have them about the same length now. Okay. Using that one as my guide now, take the next set and we're going to make a knot. That's all. Okay. There is a purpose to this, and I will show you why, and it has to do with your warp tension and its evenness right across the board. This is my preferred way to do it. Other people will tie it right onto the beam. I don't prefer to do it that way. So I'll show you one more, and then I'm just going to get it done, and then I will be back for the next step. So quick tie off, measure the length, make sure they are about the same length, tighten it up, there we go. All right, I'm going to finish tying off all the way across on both sides, because you do have to go all the way across, and then I'll be back. Quick something I just realized. Now I've been grabbing, up until this time, I've been grabbing all of a set of black and a set of gray. But in this last set, I've noted that that would leave just these black ones left over. So I'm splitting it halfway down. It doesn't really make that big of a difference, but I do want the knots to be, sorry about the shaking, I hit it with my arm. I do want the knots to be balanced, especially right at the end, because if you're going to have any dragging or anything like that, it'll happen out here. Okay, so there's my thought on that. All right, so we're all tied off, And so by tied off, I mean the knots are all down here hanging off. They're not tied on to this point. So next thing we want to do is we want to make it so that we can tie this on. And these are too long right now. So here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to pull this back a little bit. Go. Make sure that we are all in good shape here. Everything looks good. You know, I find the hardest part of all the prep work is that the excitement to create, to actually start to see the fabric take shape, is pretty strong with creators. And so there is, you know, the rush to get through it. But the more time you spend in your prep work, making sure that your warp is as even as possible, the more pleasurable your actual weaving is going to be. So there's my little soapbox. Stepped up, stepped down. I'm done. All right, so next thing I need is a way to lash on my warp thread to this. To do that, I'm going to need some basic cotton. Nothing fancy. I just need it to be able to hold it. And I will be right back, and I'm going to grab that. Okay, so got my, ooh, that was close, sorry. Got my, it's cotton, it's basic cotton. And so I chose one that's a little bit heavier because I do want it to be fairly strong. It's going to be under tension after all. So what we need is enough of this to go through each and every one of these, attaching it to this, and it's going to go like this, right? So I usually go 4 times the width of my loom. Is that a hard and fast rule? Nope. Sometimes I make them too small. Quite often, by the way, I will use this particular piece of yarn, or not yarn, but string, over and over again. Okay, so once you have your piece of string cut, okay, now I'm attaching it to my beam. I'm just, however you choose to. I do like it doubled up, so that's why my string is so long. But let me see if I can show you what I've done here. Come over here. There we go. Now you can see it. Okay. So this is, move that. There we go. And I just attached it with the loop. All right. So here's what we're going to do. From your attachment point, you'll note I've got my finger between the yarn that is in the eyes versus the slots, okay? And I'm going to weave this, not weave it, but I'm going to thread it through the center. There we go. And then you're going to just wrap it around once. The idea is this is going to be one continual piece of string that is going through each and every one of these so that we can rebalance the tension right at the beginning. Okay? And that extra time that you take to rebalance your tension right at the beginning is going to save you a lot of heartache down the road. So through the center, so we balance these out. There we go. So that is what it's going to look like all the way across. And when I go to balance the tension, I will be back. Okay, remember how I said sometimes we make mistakes? I think it's important for people to see that every time I'm learning something or I'm adjusting something. I did not calculate enough of the string. All right, so I'm just going to take them out, get some more string. I'll put this away for another thing. It'll work for a smaller project. I happen to be doing this all the way across, so I need much more. Because I doubled it up, I wasn't thinking. It happens. Anyway, so I take it out, take it off, get more string, do it again. Okay, back again, longer string, significantly I doubled the length. And here we go again. When you're dealing with it as a longer string, it is a little more unwieldy at the beginning because you're dealing with so much off the hop. But in the end, it will be better. And I think that dealing with yarn is a wonderful way to teach yourself patience. Because, you know, it doesn't always go exactly the way your brain is thinking it should go. And you may end up dealing with knots and, as I call it, yarn barf, where you have to untangle it. And it's at those moments, for me anyway, everybody handles things their own way, that I just sort of take a deep breath and go, okay, and just start untangling the mess. And, you know, have I had to cut off things before? Yeah. Have I spent time trying to save the yarn beforehand? Oh yeah, because you spend money on this yarn. You spent time on the project. You don't want to cut it off. So take the extra time to do your best to save it first. There we go. Okay, so almost back to where I was with a much longer piece of string. So I'm going to get this done and I'll be back for the rebalancing. Go. Okay, so I've gotten it all attached. Just need to tie it off. And I'm not worried at this stage about how tight it is because I'm going to rebalance this across the whole of the warp. So let's just get this tied on. There we go. Okay, so now I've got it tied on. We've got it, and you'll note they're not perfect, okay? But it doesn't need to be. What it does need to be is a continual string right across, because by pulling on this one, I'm loosening or tightening it on other spots. So let me change my camera angle so you can see what I'm about to do, and we will get it rebalanced. Though it's pretty darn, I got a little bit of looseness on either side, which is common. So we're going to be able to just sort of tighten it right across the way. So let's just change the angle a little bit. Let me bring you back here. Okay. It's hard to see the whole thing. I might be able to. Let me try. Give you a weird angle to try and see all the way across. Yeah. Ish. Okay. So at this point, what I want to see is that the center feel, and this is about feel, right? The center ones feel as tight as here, as feel as tight as here. And I can feel that this at the far end, over there, sorry, is looser than the rest. So here's what you do. When you think about a harpist, okay, we're going to pluck them right across the board. That's pretty good, actually. I'm going to tighten that up. Okay, that what I just did there. There we go. That feels as the same tension feeling here as it does through here. Okay. So now that I have that as I would like it so far, let me bring you back down a little bit so you can see what I'm doing with the, there we go. Excuse all the cables and everything. Remember, working household. There we go. Ratchet and pawl system. Okay. I'm going to take my lock off. Come on. There we go. There. All right. So at the other end, come over here so you can see for a minute. There we go. I'm going to loosen here. I'm going to tighten here. Here. I'm going to bring all this down and onto here somewhat. I need more space here for working. Okay. Some things are a little more difficult to show than others. Let's see if I can. Perhaps. All right. Here we go. Okay. I'm not taking it very far, and I'm controlling the spin. So I've taken it there. I've loosened that up a whole bunch, but now I'm tightening it up on the front end. You can't see what's really happening over here. There we go. I'm going to tighten this up on the front end. Really important at this point that you pay attention to where this is hitting, and you can't see it. Pause. There we go. You see what's happening? Like I could hear it first. And that's the nice thing about the aluminum rods, is that I can hear that my aluminum rod is too close to the ratchet and pawl system. So I'm just going to slide it across and then make sure that it's slid just enough so that it's setting just a little bit away from the ratchet and pawl system, so that when I tighten, I'm not dealing with problems. All right, so as I've tightened this, I've tightened it as far as it'll go at this point without getting ridiculous, okay? I'm gonna feel that tension again across the board just to see where we're sitting. Okay, I'm actually noting that it's looser in the center than it is here. So I'm just gonna tighten her up a little bit. Rebalance that. Good. I like good and even tension. So there we are. So now we have the warp is attached. But the next step is going to be, put you here for a sec, to separate these and make it so that it's even across here. So we have a workspace. Because right now we've got all these gaps, and we need to deal with the gaps. So we're going to take our heddle, put it in the up position, and we're going to we're going to throw a couple of picks that are going to sit across here, and basically they're going to even out the shed. That's the shed, sorry. We're going to even out the warp. Even me, terminology, still getting there. Let me grab the correct stuff and I'll be right back. There we go. Okay. So everybody has their own way of doing this and what they like to use. I like to reuse or use ends of chunky yarn that I've used for other projects. So what I'm doing is I'm measuring out 4 times the width of the project. 2, 3, 4. That should balance out, though this yarn is not as chunky as I would like. All right, sometimes you just got to make decisions on the fly, and here's where I am. So there's the 4. But I'm going to trim it there and have each 2 be 1. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I need to do that again. 1, 2. And 4. So I'm going to move these 2, 3 sets aside for the moment. By setting aside, I mean putting them on my lap. And I'm treating this as 1. So we're going to put it all the way through the shed. There's an easier way to do this, and why I'm not doing it, I'm not sure. Let me just fix that. We've been using these in a few minutes anyway, so may as well pull them out. Okay. Using it to feed it through. Okay, so I've got it laying across. I am not going to beat this. I am going to change the shed to the low shed. Ooh, maybe I made this a little too tight. There we go. I'm thinking I made my warp a little too tight. Let's just loosen that up. There we go. So I've just attached, not even attached, using this as basically a needle. Tuck that down a little bit. Okay. Now, I've done this with 3 before, so I want to see what that looks like in the way of what that's going to do to the shed, because, or the warp and the balancing it out. So let's take a look and see what happens when we beat. So right now we've got gaps. Oop. My feet need to be on this thing or else it moves. Again, could have been a better design. But now that I've got that in place, you'll see that it's all balanced out. We still have this happening over here. That's going to go, right? And now we've got a nice, even, balanced warp. And that's all that that yarn does, is it allows the warp threads to come together and rebalance. So they're not, because they're not now being forced into these peaks. So here's where we can actually start throwing our first couple of picks. And we're going to start to see some pretty happening. So I'm going to just get rid of this extra one. Now, when you're doing the houndstooth, yes, houndstooth, what we're going to do is we need 2 of these. Make my second one. There we go. So this project does take 2 shuttles. Each yarn color is going to be loaded on 1. So I have, they're still behind me. There we go. So let me bring this around. Here's how I do this. I lay the yarn across the center, and I'm holding it with my thumb, and then I'm going to wind it around 3, 4, 5. How much is up to you. And then as I wind it around, I'm coming back up through the top. That's now secured that in place. And I like to come all the way down. I do a figure 8 pattern. Right. Oh. Again, as you're touching the yarn, you get the opportunity to fix any little knots, imperfections, that kind of thing. So here's what I found. Where is it? There it is. See that? Okay, so I'm just going to undo this little knot. There we go. And then carry on. I'm going to load this one up with the gray, and I'm going to load the other one up with the black. And I will be back when that is done.